Perek Aleph Mishna Tezvav, the 16th Perek, Mishna, the first Perek, says, Rabbi Gamliel Haya Omer, Aseh l'charav. This is a teaching that we actually had earlier, but here it's also Rabbi Gamliel's teacher that a person should set for himself a Rav, a teacher, an instructor, a role model, someone to learn from. Number two, histalek min hasafek, avoid doubts. In other words, presumably he means when it comes to halacha that a lot of times we can have a safek, and halacha builds in many rules like how to manage a safek. If it's a safek d'oraisa, if it's a biblical law, we're strict. If it's a rabbinic law, we're lenient. And there are many different details of how to manage situations when we're in doubt. But I think what Rabbi Gamliel is saying, try to avoid doubt. When something is important to us, we try to find out for sure what the situation is. If something is a matter of health, if something might be poison or might be unhealthy, we care a lot about our health. We should, and therefore we try to find out with as much certainty as possible and reserve the rules of how to deal with safek to a situation when we have to have a safek, but we don't try to create safek, but which could be a sort of a laziness, like why bother finding out for sure? We should try to find out for sure because we want to show that it matters to us. And the third law is, or teaching, is one of the most specific in terms of halacha in Pirkei Avot. Al tarbeh la'aser omadot. Try not to make a habit of taking off maaser by estimation and guesswork, which is sort of similar to the previous, not by safek, but by certainty. This is actually a very technical instruction because maaser is supposed to be 1/10. Before maas, other tithes or other gifts like truma don't have an exact measure. So if you want to give a 50th, a 40th, you can give with estimation, and it doesn't really matter exactly how much it is. But when it comes to maaser, only 1/10 exactly could be maaser. You can't add on more. So when you have a harvest, let's say, so all of it is called tevel, which means that you're not allowed to eat it until you take off the tithe, the maaser, which is exactly 1/10. If you take off 11% and call it maaser and give it to the Levi, well, what really happened is that out of that 11%, only 10/11ths are actually maaser, and that one is actually untithed and can't be eaten. So that 1% that's mixed in with the other 10% that's given to the Levi actually can't be eaten, and therefore the estimation, even if we give too much, actually can cause a halachic problem. So therefore, Rabbi Gamliel tells us that estimation, if you're giving tzedakah or truma, which can be any amount, don't worry, you can estimate up to try to give a little bit extra. It's not a problem. But with maaser, it's supposed to be exact, and therefore, of course, we can't be 100% exact, but it's exact as possible, and therefore try not to be too reliant on estimation when giving maaser. The next Mishnah, Yud Zayin, Shimon ben No Omer, Rav Shimon ben Gamliel says, Kol yamai gadalti ben hachachamim v'lo matzasi l'guv tov el shtika. My whole life, I grew up amongst chachamim. My father, of course, Rabbi Gamliel, was a great leader, and I didn't find anything greater than quiet. Now, a cynic might say that he grew up in a house where the rabbis were all arguing, and he just wanted a little peace and quiet. But I think more likely what he's saying is that quiet is the opportunity to be reflective, and he found that to be the thing he learned from the chachamim that he grew up with, that the more quiet and the more opportunity for reflection, the better. And shtika, quiet, might also be another word for listening. The best quality is when we don't have the need to hear our own voice and to speak, even to teach, but rather to listen and to be taught by others. And that quality he learned in the house of Rabbi Gamliel. Secondly, he says, Lo ha-midrash hua ikar ela ma'aseh. It's not the main thing to learn, but really to do. because this reflects another saying of Chazal that we should be learning almanas lasos, that the purpose of learning is for action. The Gemara has a debate whether Talmud is more important or Maaseh is more important, and the Talmud concludes that learning is the most important because it leads to action. And this is what Rabbi Shimon is saying as well, that it's not the important thing only to learn, but that learning should lead to action. And the third teaching sort of reflects the first, whoever indulges in too many words, too much talking, that brings him to sin. To me, this also, sometimes you're in a situation and you have an awkward silence and you feel like you have to fill that silence, and that's usually when I say the wrong thing. So don't worry, silence is okay, and don't speak too much, because ultimately that can cause us to say the wrong thing. Speak meaningfully and speak appropriately, but don't overdo it, because that will lead us to sin very often.